And so now this 15th chapter is his plan for integration. So let's kind of dive in and see how he suggests we should do this. He says when problem areas surface in the attempt to integrate Christianity and science, Christians, he tells us, need to think hard about the issues in light of the need for strengthening the rational authority of Christian theism and placing it squarely within the plausibility structure of contemporary culture. So what is he getting at here? Well, he wants to make sure that Christianity is, that we put it as part of the discussion, make it part of the discussion with regard to the plausibility, the things that we find true or rational or justified or whatever in the contemporary culture. And he says one addresses problems like these. When we do that, there will emerge a number of different ways that theology can interact with an issue in a discipline outside of theology. And so he's going to work through a few of those.
Very first one that he brings up as a particular strategy is what he calls here the two realms model. So this strategy for addressing conflicts between theology and other disciplines is based on the idea that propositions, theories, and methodologies in theology and another discipline, such as science, may involve two distinct, non-overlapping areas of integration. For example, debates about angels or the existence of the atonement have little to do with organic chemistry. And he mentioned this in the last chapter about how, like 95% of all claims, both either on the historical side or on the science side or on the theology side, tend to not overlap. So this might have a tie-in here. Well, similarly, it is of little interest to theology whether a methane molecule has 3 or 4 hydrogen atoms in it. So the two realms or domains are focusing on different areas of investigation. Can you give me a clipping of God's toenail? Well, God isn't a physical being like that. Well, then, therefore, you have no scientific explanation for God, and I can reject him because I don't have a toenail clipping of God. We're talking about two different realms here. So we can't give you a toenail clipping because you're only a physicalist, and I can't do that. Well, then I don't believe in your God. Well, my God doesn't have that type of physical belief. Okay, so there's the two realms model. They're divergent, two divergent.
Right. So there's two different areas of investigation, right? The two are, and they're separate. So that's one kind of model that he is suggesting here. Secondly, he says there's the complementary model. And he says this second strategy is based on the idea that propositions, theories, or methodologies in theology and other disciplines such as science may involve two different complementary, non-interacting approaches to the same reality. So what's he getting at here? Well, he says when this model is used, the two disciplines are referring to the same object, but from different perspectives, offering partial descriptions at different levels and with different vocabulary. So this is two different but complementary, non-interacting approaches, right? So they're looking at the same thing from different perspectives, we might say. So, for instance, he says the proposition water is formed by God and the proposition water is formed by a synthesis reaction of hydrogen and oxygen are both true, right? Hydrogen and oxygen synthesis plus or God. Both of those statements, those propositions are true. And he says neither one purports to tell the whole story, but both make truth claims about reality. They complement each other from different angles. So that's the complementarian kind of model. And of course, now he's going to have some issues with this model, as we will see here.
Right. So why does the 8-ball go into the pocket? Well, the white billiard ball hit it. Well, no, it was because of the pool player with the pool stick. Well, they both can't be right?
Right. Yeah.
No, they certainly can. Each one complements the other here.
Right. Neither tells the whole story, right? But they look at the story from the activity, the event from different perspectives.
Right. Yes. All right. So there is a significant danger, however, in this approach. Well, okay. Why? Well, because it can have an effect and de-supernaturalize the world and undercut our ability to detect God's direct miraculous actions in the world. For example, in this way, the complementary view kills the idea that direct miraculous answers to prayer occur and can be rationally detected. Everything's just put on the sugar pill, the placebo effect. That's the only reason that prayer might work. People get their voices back or are completely cured from MS. Those just happen to coincide certainly with prayer activity and the faithful and continuous prayer for them and the direct response to that. Well, probably not. Being cured of MS or preaching on stage about the sovereignty of God, healing of a voice completely that's been a neurological issue. Those two are hard to dismiss away by just that placebo effect. So thus, while there is a place for using kind of complementary view of integration, one must be very careful not to overuse it. Such overuse marginalizes Christianity.
Exactly. So this, I think, in Nancy Pearcey's book, we saw this, and she
Right.
called this reduction, right? Where if we can reduce every event to some physical processes, then there's really we kind of can edge out God. And so that's what he's getting at here, right? We can dismiss the supernatural by trying to, reduce something to the physical processes. But again, in your pool example, notice, even if we try to reduce the whole movement of the balls to just the physical processes, that still doesn't work for us, because there's the pool player that has a determined to put the ball in the hole, right? Yeah. And so, but the danger is we can just kind of overuse it, and we can use it to dismiss the supernatural. That's why he called it desupernaturalizing the world.
Right. This is kind of, isn't it Zeno's paradox, where you're always taking half of the movement from the arrow, and you get to the pool ball, to the pool stick, well, to the movement of the stick. Well, then how did the stick move? Well, there was certain energy that was put into it. Well, how did the energy there? Well, it was attached to an arm. Well, how did the arm get there? And so you could just continually explain, when at some point you're going to have to get back to the being behind the holder of that arm, who ate the apple that could hit the pool cue that could sink the 8-ball into the pocket. That's so right. Yeah. So such overuse marginalizes Christianity. It marginalizes Christianity and allows Christianity contemporaries to hide behind the view of integration. Oh, I'm sure you're right, but let's remove God from the gaps here and just continue to have this explanation over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's have the first explanation. Nothing was there to have the first explanation. Okay, well, good. That you've started off with nothing and you can't get to one.
Yeah, I think, so there's all kinds of illustrations of this, right, where we try to reduce everything. So that's really what he's getting at here. All right, so that is the complementary model, right, where we have two different complementary, non-interacting approaches, two different perspectives on the same thing. And by the way, they both are true from their perspective. They're just not the whole picture. That's what he's trying to get at. And the danger here is trying to put especially the physical processes over the
right. Well, and we can turn it against ourselves too, right? Like we can say, how did the rock get here? Well, it seemed to have traveled down this hill because of erosion. Well, but what caused it? Well, instead of saying it rained for thousands of years here to level this out, we just say God did it. Well, yeah, that's true in the sense that he is the initial person that created the rock and the rain. But what we're trying to get to is the explanation of how did big rock from down here that's not sandstone come from all the way up there where all the sandstone is. So we can turn this against the Christian ideas as well too.
Right. So we need to be careful.